In 2015, a Taiwanese man died from overexhaustion after playing video games for 3 days non-stop. He was unemployed and depressed, and video games were his way to cope. Video games have become extremely addictive, to the point of being compared to heroin and crack, because these games can hijack the brain and destroy lives if they are abused. Like hardcore drugs, video game addicts experience withdrawals when they stop playing. Video game withdrawal symptoms include extreme sadness, anxiety, fatigue, and aggression. 16-year-old Daniel Petrick was heavily addicted to gaming, often playing for over 18 hours at a time. When his parents confiscated his Xbox, Daniel's withdrawals made him anxious and angry. On October 20, 2007, he killed his mother and shot his father with a handgun. Video game addiction also severely damages physical health. When addicts game for over 10 hours, they tend to forget necessary functions like sleeping, eating, and using the restroom. This mom had to hand feed her son who refused to stop gaming. Kellen Beck became addicted to World of Warcraft at the age of 14. He would often play the game all night and into the morning. During weekends and summers, he would play 14 hours a day. He became severely underweight after constantly skipping meals, and his diet consisted of dry cereal, frozen pizza, and Coke. And excessive gaming also causes physical injuries like carpal tunnel, a finger being locked, or inflammation of the wrist tendons. Not only that, but gamers can develop blood clots in their legs if they remain sedentary for too long, and several gamers have died from this. Along with this, excessive gaming can also lead to permanent brain damage. A 2019 German study found that excessive gamers had significantly decreased gray and white matter compared to non-gamers, and this is pretty much irreversible. Damage to white and gray matter can severely impair decision-making, impulse control, coordination, and memory. Children who game excessively are especially vulnerable to this, as their brains are still developing, and this brain damage can impair them for the rest of their lives. But besides damage on health, excessive gaming can also destroy a person's life. Here's a clip of Joe Rogan talking about his own addiction.
I had a real problem when I was playing 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, and I'm 30 years old. I'm not where I want to be with my life. I'm just sitting here playing video games all the time, and there's no future in this.
Camodera was a smart and happy kid who loved hockey. But when he entered the 8th grade, he was severely bullied. He began to hate school and hockey, and found comfort in video games. He eventually dropped out of high school at the age of 15 to live in his parents' basement and play video games for up to 16 hours a day. Gaming was an escape for him, and he could be distracted from all his problems. Cam attempted to quit his gaming addiction, but after moving to a new city, his gaming addiction returned. His everyday life would consist of eating, gaming, and sleeping. And this doesn't only affect teenagers. The average age of a video game addict is 24 years old. Along with this, video game addiction can also destroy relationships. According to Divorce Online, 15% of divorce cases cited men playing too many video games as a contributing factor. In 2018, the UK reported 200 divorce cases, which cited a big reason being husbands playing too much Fortnite. The instant gratification and immersive nature of video games leaves many to prioritize their gaming and put less effort into their relationships. But spouses aren't the only ones affected by this. 48-year-old Mark Knapp and 33-year-old Elizabeth Pester became obsessed with a multiplayer simulator game called Second Life. But they also had a 2-year-old daughter who they neglected because they were too focused on the video game. After months of neglect, their daughter nearly starved to death and weighed a mere 13 pounds when she was rushed to the hospital. These video games have been harming millions across the world, and this problem got even worse with the introduction to mobile games. Now, people can bring their addiction with them wherever they go. It's like people having their bong and crack pipe with them at all times. When a video game is always within hand's reach, it's much more likely to disrupt a person's life and distract them from their responsibilities. An example of this is Fortnite, with over 129 million downloads in the App Store. Another notorious mobile game is Candy Crush, with over 5 billion downloads worldwide, and 15 million Western individuals are addicted to this game. Roblox was downloaded 218 million times in 2024 alone, and is getting an entire generation of naive, innocent children hooked. Roblox is not only addictive, but also exposes children to many dangerous threats. A 9-year-old girl on Roblox became friends with a 13-year-old boy, and they would frequently chat on the app. However, the 13-year-old boy began to request buying explicit images from the girl. You see, this 13-year-old boy wasn't really 13, but was actually 31-year-old David Ibarra. I found this story using today's sponsor, Ground News, which is the only app and website I trust for reading news. As you can see, this story is being heavily reported by the left and underreported by the right. Leftist headlines are reporting the airman involved in this act as from the US, while the right excludes this critical information from the headline. If If you don't use ground news, you might not be aware of these biases in headlines, keeping you away from the truth. In modern times, political news media is full of bias, which keeps the public misinformed in order to push its own agenda. Whenever you watch the news or media, you can never be sure if the information you're given is the complete truth. That sucks, right? Well, the good news is that ground news provides many valuable tools to help spot bias and differences between the left and right, as well as give you a fuller picture on the issue. Ground news also has a blind spot feature, which allows you to see the information that is being underreported by a political party, which is incredibly useful for learning the important information that the media does not want you to know. If you want to avoid media bias, you can subscribe to Ground News with a 40% discount on the Vantage plan, or use my link ground.news/humanity. That gives you unlimited access to all features for just $5 a month. But this offer is only available through the link in my pinned comment and the description of this video. You can also scan this QR code right here. So don't wait, you deserve to see the full picture. Now, video game addiction is very similar to drug addiction, and this is because excessive gaming actually affects the brain in a very similar way to hardcore drugs. When we play video games, our brains release dopamine, the neurotransmitter that gives us pleasure. I'm going to explain the neuroscience behind video game withdrawals, and you'll see how similar this is to hardcore drugs. Let's say you're chilling on your couch. These are your dopamine receptors. By default, a reasonable amount of dopamine enters your dopamine receptors. Now, let's say you start playing video games. Your brain suddenly gets a surplus of dopamine. Now, your dopamine receptors are being overstimulated. Your brain says, hey, I'm getting so much dopamine right now, I don't need so many dopamine receptors anymore. So your brain adapts, and now you have less dopamine receptors. This is known as downregulation. Because you have less dopamine receptors, you now experience less pleasure by default. Before, you could chill on the couch and be satisfied, but now you experience intense boredom. The only way to cure this boredom is to play more video games. And as you game more and more, your brain further adapts to the dopamine surplus, and your dopamine receptors reduce even further. And this eventually gets to the point where your default state is a severe lack of pleasure. When you first started gaming, you did it because it was fun. And now you play games just to feel normal again. If this sounds familiar, it's because hardcore drugs operate the same way. Stimulant drugs like tobacco, cocaine, and methamphetamine create a similar surplus of the brain's dopamine, which leads to a decrease in dopamine receptors and lack of regular pleasure. This all goes to show that video game addiction isn't as easy as just simply putting down the controller or turning off the computer. But if this wasn't bad enough, there are also many other factors that make quitting even more difficult. People often use video games as a safe place to distract themselves from their problems. People who are going through a rough patch in their lives are most likely to get addicted. These games provide a sense of comfort in the dark and sad period they are going through, and without gaming, they don't have anything else to comfort them. People with disorders like ADHD, depression, or OCD are most vulnerable to video game addiction. This all goes to show that video game addiction isn't merely an issue of willpower, and it would be shallow-minded to assume that all video game addicts are lazy and spoiled. Video game addicts struggle through a real psychological disorder, so they should be treated with understanding and encouragement. However, major video game companies treat these individuals more like financial assets. These companies incorporate a variety of strategies to keep players hooked and playing as long as possible. Many popular video games use intermittent reinforcement, which is the delivery of a reward at irregular intervals. This creates a cycle of craving and reward-seeking behavior. An example of this is Call of Duty, which intermittently rewards players with supply drops that contain weapons, skins, armor, and functional items. Players are also rewarded with XP by completing tasks and getting kills. Another strategy companies use is to provide an overwhelming sense of accomplishment and pride to the player. An example of this is Candy Crush, which praises players with enthusiastic messages during and after each round, which creates a big boost of dopamine. Lastly, a common strategy to keep players addicted is to use bright and saturated colors, which grabs the player's attention. This can be seen in Candy Crush, Fortnite, and Fall Guys. Companies have perfected these strategies to the point that gamers are so immersed, even a typhoon flood can't interrupt them. The intention behind these strategies isn't to give players a fun time. Rather, the intention is to profit off of players, and this is done through microtransactions. You see, almost all the popular games feature weapons, skins, and game passes which require money to unlock. By creating highly addictive and engaging games, companies have manipulated players into desiring better and better items and perks, leading them to want to spend loads of money on microtransactions. There have been many cases of individuals spending thousands of dollars on microtransactions on a single game. In 2024 alone, the gaming industry generated $455 billion in revenue. These companies are designing their games to be as addictive as possible, so they can grab as much money from the players as they can. This has gotten so bad that many have filed lawsuits against these companies for making their games too addictive. Angeli v. Gaming Companies, Gibson v. Roblox Corporation, and Orellana v. Roblox Corporation are some of the many examples of this. Now, it might sound like I've been bashing video games a lot throughout this video. Well, my honest opinion is that there's nothing wrong with playing games. I play a lot of Roblox myself. Video games are a great way to bring joy to your life and connect with your friends. These games are only harmful when played excessively. It's really about finding a good balance, and if you struggle with that, then this part of the video is for you. If you think you might be addicted to video games, don't be afraid to seek help. Video game addiction is a serious problem, just like a smoking or drinking addiction. A similarity between substance and video game addiction is that going cold turkey might not always work, and could potentially cause more harm than good. You don't need to completely take video games out of your life, as this might be too difficult and you might relapse quickly. Try to replace the highly stimulating games you're used to with a less stimulating, more mellow game. And try to set a daily time limit for yourself, like 2 hours of gaming a day. It's gonna suck for the first few weeks, but over time, your dopamine levels will restore back to normal, and you will feel satisfied and stimulated by basic activities like walking or reading. Your everyday life will feel engaging enough to the point where you won't rely on gaming to feel good. I also suggest you check out Healthy Gamer and Game Quitters. These channels provide a lot of great advice for video game addiction. And I just want to end this video off by saying you should treat life like a video game. You start off with nothing and you progress. You also meet interesting characters along the way, as well as enemies and obstacles. As you progress, you unlock certain achievements, which allow you to progress even further in the game. And one of the biggest similarities between life and video games is that it won't be truly fun until you actually try. When you first opened Minecraft, it wasn't fun right away. You had to put effort into digging blocks, exploring, and learning crafting recipes until it became fun. When you first opened Fortnite, it wasn't fun right away. You had to put effort into learning how to aim, how to build, and how the gameplay works before you could have fun. Roblox wasn't fun right away. You had to actively search and find the games you enjoy the most before you could truly have fun. Life is the same way. It's not going to be a blast right away. You have to put the effort into finding what you're passionate about, learning the skills necessary, and working towards it every day. And if you keep going, you'll begin to realize that life can be really fun. More fun than any video game you've ever played. All you have to do is try. People have been using video games to cope with their sadness, but in the past few years, a new form of technology is helping people cope. Romantic relationships with AI are becoming incredibly mainstream, and this phenomenon is posing a massive threat to humanity. That sounds interesting, right? Well, click right here to learn more about this. If you like this video, then subscribe right now because I have a lot more videos coming soon. So I will see you in the next video. Bye.